Good morning, Ozarks. It's April 1st, but we're not fooling around today. We're going to talk about chronic fatigue syndrome right after this.
I want to be your disability rep.
That in a second.
And we are back. Chronic fatigue syndrome. As soon as you mentioned that to me this morning, what did I say?
That you've got.
I've got that. Who doesn't have chronic fatigue syndrome? Aren't we all just exhausted all the time?
Well, and that's exactly it. And if I ask somebody what chronic fatigue syndrome is, they're all going to say, "Well, I'm tired all the time," right?
Yeah,
because it makes
sure.
perfect sense. And unfortunately, our doctors are kind of in that same grouping a lot of times. If someone comes in and complains that I'm fatigued all the time, then they get CFS written in their medical records. We have no idea what it means. And we talk about this all the time, right? That
Sure.
we don't know what things mean. And, I always think about disability like that really hard, hateful English teacher you had in high school who just took your papers and tore them apart, red ink everywhere, they bled like crazy, because you didn't answer all the questions that you needed to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And the more persuasive the argument,
Yeah.
the better detailed, the more explanation there is. And if you don't have that, you start to question it. And that's what happens with Social Security, too.
Okay, so when we're talking about something like chronic fatigue syndrome, I was joking. Yes, I'm tired, but I work late, I sleep, and then I get up early and I work again, and that's just kind of what I do. So it's by choice. It's not really a medical condition.
Right. And I was up framing the house this weekend too. I'm absolutely beat this morning. That's why I thought about chronic fatigue syndrome. But what we're missing is the muscle soreness. We're missing the swelling of the lymph nodes. We're missing the lightheadedness, the dizziness, the labored breathing, the changes in restroom habits, the having to get up and go pee in the middle of the night. We're missing the pale coloring of our skin. We're missing a lot of these things that kind of round out the rest of chronic fatigue syndrome.
I see.
We just simply don't have those things.
So is this a situation where people are coming in and complaining that they say they have chronic fatigue syndrome and it's getting written into their records, or is this something that's just sort of become a generic catch-all that doctors are maybe over-abusing the term?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. And the more that I read medical records and the more that I do the Social Security work, the more convinced I am that a lot of our doctors are just simply lazy. And no offense to the doctors out there.
No, I get it.
Everyone knows there are people in their professions that do a good job, and there's people that honestly should be doing something different.
Sure.
And you see this a lot of times with chronic fatigue syndrome. It gets hung on people with no explanation. I think just simply because they complain about being fatigued.
Yeah.
But kind of the overall problem then is that when Social Security reads your primary care doctor's notes, they come back and see a diagnosis that's not well supported. And then that's an opening for them to essentially question everything else your doctor says.
And then deny the outlet.
Yeah, Katie bar the door.
Yeah, no, we see that, lazy law. We talk about lazy law. I just practicing lazy law because you didn't do the research, you didn't write the brief, you didn't do the other things you were supposed to do. But I think that potentially, and I know maybe lawyers face this too, but I think doctors, they're kind of in a, I guess to give them a little bone here, they're in a tight spot. I've been dealing 9 weeks with this shoulder, which is, by the way, mostly healed, and I can do some things I couldn't do. But, I just look at the way, my doctor, they clearly, the day he's working, he is running from room to room to room to room, from patient to patient to patient with a scribe behind him, just writing down everything he's saying. And so, and I think that's just they're under a pressure to produce because they're all working for corporate now,
Sure.
right? So I get it.
And in my previous life, some of my duties was supervising folks that did billing type work, insurance billing, and trying to resolve workman's comp claims and that sort of stuff. And, as part of that, I went to a number of seminars, productions about all the things that doctors have to do in order for Medicare to pay them.
Yeah.
The documentation requirement is crazy for each patient. They spend more time on the documentation for Medicare to pay than they do with the patient.
No, I don't doubt it.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. But, somewhere corners get round that they have to for some professions to simply survive.
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes that's at the expense of the client or the patient.
Or the recording, right?
Or the recording, yeah,
Or the
absolutely.
recording, yep.
Well, if you have any questions about the situation, chronic fatigue syndrome, how to make sure your medical records accurately reflect your condition, particularly if you're thinking disability might be something that you're going to have to apply for in the future, give Roy a call. His number's on the screen right behind me, 417-812-6698. Give him a call. He's available today.
I am.
He'll take your call, scan the link, go to the website, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
I want to be your disability rep.